Hello and welcome to the video. This is a video covering what my favourite planes and wings are at the moment. Now this is an incredibly subjective list. It depends on what you as a pilot are actually looking for, but it is a question that I get a lot, and I've been in a couple of podcasts recently where this is something that tends to crop up. Now, this is also a changeable list, so if you ask me the question in a month's time, it might be a slightly different answer. However, maybe 3 of the 4 top planes that I'm about to talk about are actually things that aren't particularly new. They've been around for quite a long time, and they've been around on the channel for quite a while as well. I am very lucky in that I get lots of stuff in here for review, so I get to fly an awful lot of stuff. But this list is the ones that if I get a chance to go to the field to fly for fun, this is the stuff that goes in the boot of the car. And I think most pilots have these handful of go-to models that are just ones that are relied on for just a fun time to fly at the field. However, there is no such thing as one model that does everything fantastically well. Everything has its own particular advantages and benefits, and that's why I'm covering 4, because although these are my 4 favourites that you will see if you ever bump into me flying, there'll be at least 1, probably 2, maybe even 3 of these actually at my feet with batteries charged ready to go. They will be flown for different things and because I'm looking for different experiences from the flight. I may want to go to the field and explore. I may want to fly for a long time in the particular area that I'm in and just get lost in the whole experience of flying FPV. I might want a model that breaks down into smaller pieces so that it can go in a backpack. So if I'm going for a walk, I can get to wherever I am, snap it together and have a fly. I might want something that goes like absolute stink, where I don't really care about the amount of time that I get flying, but I want to go at high speed and skim the treetops. Or it might be a model that I want that's super stable, perfect for sticking an action camera on or 2 and getting some footage. So there's lots of different reasons why you might pick a model to fly. There are a few models that aren't on this list that have missed it by a whisker. Things like the Hobby King Bixler series, the Skywalkers are fantastic models. They're great for soaring. Black Hawk, things like the Mini Drax and the Nano Drax are fantastic for locked in high performance flying. Things like the ZOHD Dart, sadly they've retired that and haven't really replaced it with anything. Used to be one of my go-tos that I would recommend everyone started out. I still have mine and I still love it. Things like the Atomosi Killer Whale, which is a twin that is a little bit of a bigger model, very stable to fly. And if we're talking about stable models, I'm also a fan of things like the Hobby King Tundra series as well. They are incredible models that are super easy to fly. The Prime Tundra that they brought out recently is a great trainer. Sadly, the shipping at the moment is a big problem with Hobby King, so a lot of people, it's just too expensive to get hold of it. So, with all that said, let me talk about the 4 models that you will see me with all the time at the moment. Now, to make this easier, what I've done is I've come up with this little scale, and I'm tempted to maybe use this in reviews going forward. So what we have here is we have whether it's good at low speed and whether it's good at high speed, because models tend to be vastly varied on those 2 things. Some of the things that go very fast don't float for toffee, and some of the things that are really floaty don't go very quickly. But some are very good at both. The 2 in the middle, the top one is how well does it survive crashes. Now that is typically how robust it is, how much strengthening it has, what kind of foam it is. Some of these models are available in different types of foam. Some of the heavier foam is more brittle and will snap. Now, all of the models I'm about to talk about have been through several bounces and crashes, so I can give you a reasonable idea of how well they will survive. Below that is how acrobatic they can be. Now you can obviously dial down the rates of a particular model, but if you want to be able to do loops and rolls and flips and things, some models are better at it than others. Typically ones that have a low inertia around things like the roll axis or give you enough authority with the elevator to do nice loops as well. Last 2 are whether or not there's enough room inside for modern flight controller and FPV electronics. Lots of models that I love have, because I tend to put iNav and FPV into the stuff that I fly here. That's one of my passions. But also the one underneath it is how well does it come apart for transport and repair, because for me that is something that's really important. I like the ability to be able to take the wings off to make it easier to store, but also it's easier to transport and carry like that as well, and it will fit in a backpack. So with these kind of sliding scales set, let's look at the first one. The first one is one of my favorite models bar none at the moment, and that is the Atom Rc Dolphin, available in white as I have it here and black. I've just invested in a new lot of foam. Bango were doing a promotion thing, so I've got the foam because it does occasionally snap its nose with having that long front when you crash. In terms of being able to fly slowly, this is very good at it. Below about 12-13 miles an hour, it will start to stall, but you can go incredibly slowly and float around, but it will also do high 70s, 80 mile an hours in the stock configuration, and putting more aggressive motors and props on it, you can dramatically increase that speed as well. In terms of the survivability in a crash, from my experience here, it is very good. The only weak point is that long nose. It does tend to get snapped. However, it's foam, one little line of hot glue, and it's all back together. Mine has had the several seams opened up in the nose, but it's always gone back if it's gone in a little bit hard. In terms of the maneuverability, it can be very maneuverable if you increase the rates, but it's quite a stable plane. So it's not a super duper flippy floppy rolling acrobatic model, but you can easily do nice rolls and loops and things with it as well if you put in the throws. In terms of room for a flight controller, there is absolutely tons of room in this. The whole back opens up, so you have loads of space. You don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to be able to fit a flight controller. I've got the FPV combat system in here. I've got radios for that. I've got all kinds of stuff. Used a large, one of my older X8R receivers in it. It just fits everything inside. And in terms of coming apart, the wings do come off. They're held in place with 2 screws. The vertical stabilizers are glued in, so that's the only problem. It tends to be quite tall and the main body is quite long, but the wings do come off for transport, and that's a big positive thing if you're putting it in a small area. So the next one in this list is the Hewing Ranger T1. This is a little twin, and the wings actually pop on and off. It has a carbon fiber boom, doesn't have a rudder, but it has the elevator out at the back. Really nicely put together and loads of room in here. I'm flying mine with the DJI FPV HD system in it. Now, this is one of those models that does low speed very well and also does high speed. The trick with it is you have to have the center of gravity a little bit further forward than you think, and it actually helps with that low speed. If you find that yours is stalling when you try and slow down, you get a nasty tip stall, that probably means that your center of gravity isn't quite forward enough. It won't go super fast. It doesn't have, huge motors and props. It is very efficient and it will fly for a long time. The Atom Rc has a huge space for battery. This has a little bit less. I'm flying mine with lithium ion. In terms of crash survivability, it seems to do really well. It will pop the wings off if you crash. Remember to unplug your battery before you snap it all together. It does have a big sticker on it saying don't hot plug the wings. But all the crashes and dings that mine have had, it's still in one piece and I haven't had to reach for the hot glue gun yet. Part of that is because it isn't particularly heavy. The other part of it is well constructed and there isn't a long nose that's going to catch things. So it's one of those that will survive crashes okay. In terms of acrobatics, yeah, not the best acrobatic plane. It is good for soaring and exploring and filming. And if you want to have an acrobatic one, there's something coming later on that's probably going to be a better choice. Room for flight controllers and modern electronics. Yep, there's enough room in here if you are careful with stuff. I ended up using a very small Maytech F411 WSE at the back with the DJI the Cadix Air Unit Lite, that kind of worked inside mine. And again, with the lithium ion battery, everything just fits in. But just fits in. This isn't one of those like the Dolphin where you can just stick everything wherever you want and run the wires and away you go. Last one is, this is a great model for breaking down. You can take the wings off, there are little clips inside and the wings pop off, which is great, and that leaves you with kind of the main body with the carbon boom. The carbon boom can also be removed by unplugging the elevator from the flight controller or receiver. You can undo one single collet and the whole thing will slide out. Vertical stabilizer is held in with a screw. That's the only thing that you can't do without tools at the field, but it is great for breaking down and sticking in a backpack, so it gets a very high score for that. The next model is a close relation to the Ranger, which is this thing here. Available, I bought it originally as a Diatom Ripper, but also available as the He-Wing F01. This is a smaller wing that is absolutely fantastic. This does not do slow speed very well at all. Slow speed for this is about 30-35 miles an hour, but it will easily do 80 odd up to 90 miles an hour in standard configuration without a problem. In terms of the crash survivability, I found that the darker foam is a little bit brittle and you can snap things off, particularly things like the winglets at the ends of the wings tend to take quite a lot of damage, and you will end up snapping the front off both of them, as well as kind of snapping the whole thing off as well. Mine has been through the wars, seams have opened up, but again, hot glue has put it all back together, and that's because when you're coming into land, you have no option but to come in at a reasonably high speed to maintain control to bring it in. In terms of maneuverability, this is fantastic. You can flip and roll and dance around the sky and do crazy amounts of rolling and acrobatics in this. Give it a little bit more authority on movement on the control surfaces. With the high speed that it's going at, you don't need much movement and you've already done 3 flips in a second. The kind of roll rates are insane in the standard default setup. In terms of flight controllers, it's kind of the same situation as the Ranger. You have to be careful about where you put everything. There isn't a ton of space in here. But again, with a Matek F411 WSE, you can just about get everything inside here. I fly mine with one of the 2200 4S LiPo batteries, a high capacity one, which is a slightly lower C rating, but gives you 2200 milliamp hours in the size of a regular 1300 4S pack. That gives you a little bit longer in the air. You don't get tons of flight time with this, particularly if you're flying quickly, which it kind of inspires you to do, but that 10-12 minutes of flight, you have a goofy grin on your face the entire time. Sadly, it doesn't come apart. You have to glue everything together, so there's no option once you have it together to take it into pieces. However, it is physically very big, so it does still be quite portable even once you've finished gluing all the pieces and the wings in. Last one is the Arwink Pro. This is the graceful model that is there for endurance and filming that I tend to pull out. Those of you that watch the channel, you'll know that I was involved a little bit with the design of the Arwink Pro, and it's one of those that I keep going back to. My initial first one has finally died, and I have put all the electronics into white foam. In terms of the speed envelope, it is very capable. With the amount of weight in the nose that you need to get the central gravity right, I fly it with a very large 7000 milliamp hour 4S2P lithium ion pack and some weight in the nose because I'm not running it with a GoPro. Once you have it with the weight so the central gravity is right, it's a pretty heavy model, but the power that's in there launches are relatively easy, and it doesn't do very high speed. It isn't a speed machine in the standard trim, and it will float around. It doesn't do bad, but it won't go down to the kind of 15-12 miles an hour that the Atomosi Dolphin will, so it's not quite as good on that. In terms of crash survivability, it seems pretty good. My first one smashed and crashed and came apart in lots of different ways. The issue is that because it has all of that weight in the nose for central gravity, if you do come nose in, that energy just splits the foam apart at the front. However, again, hot glue is your friend. If you can find all the foam pieces, it's easy to put it back together. In terms of maneuverability and acrobatics, not particularly high score for this one. This wasn't really designed to be an acrobatic rig. There are other models that we've already talked about, things like the Diatom Ripper or the He-Wing F01 we looked at in the last model, which are better options if you want to fly around and zoom it fly it like you stole it. In terms of space for the flight controller. This is like the Atomosi Dolphin. There is tons of room in this for everything, and there's actually more room with different pods, loads of airflow for cooling. So putting things like the DJI HD system in it is a piece of cake, as long as you can get that central gravity right. And lastly, it does nicely come apart. The wings are held in place by 2 screws, so although it's physically quite a large wing when it's all together, it does break down into 3 easy pieces, something that I wanted when we were doing the design, so it could fit in the boot of my car. So here are the 4 together that we've looked at. So what we have here at the top, we have the Arwink Pro that we've just looked at. I will fly that one when I want to do filming, when I want to do endurance and long, lazy, fun times where I have room to carry it. The second one then is the Hewing Ranger T1, a little twin plane that breaks down into very small pieces, that's very capable, a little bit tight inside, but is fantastic fun to fly, quite efficient. You can get a decent flight time out of a lithium-ion battery. Then we have the Atomosi Dolphin, which is fantastic at both high and low speeds, very good at surviving crashes, apart from that long nose tends to get broken in a crash, and also has tons of room inside for flight controller, as well as breaking down with those wings coming off and just being held in place with a single bolt. And at the bottom, we have the Diatom Ripper, also known as the Hewing F01, which is my favourite little flight like Stolit wing, which doesn't do slow very well at all, but does fast very well indeed, and is very acrobatic. A little bit tight inside, and unfortunately doesn't come apart. So hopefully that's interesting for those of you that are looking at getting something new for the summer. That right now are my top 4 favourite planes. Again, there will be a kit picks that I do in the summer that will revisit all the stuff, so goggles, radios, quads, everything else, and I'll do the full update. But hopefully for those of you that are wondering about what it is that I'm flying right now and what I'd recommend, those are my 4. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organized into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.